Okay. Oh my gosh, dude, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, tired. Okay,
Welcome
thanks
back.
for joining me again, Mike, for another episode of the Grumpy Dad podcast.
We are
Excited to get chatting. Man, it's funny how just getting some perspective and I was working on editing the last week's podcast, going through things. I was like, man, this is really fun. This is really interesting. And then after I got it posted, I thought, wow, I like what's next. You start thinking like, okay, well, what are we going to talk about next? Like, how's this
right.
week going? And um and it was really nice to kind of have that framework throughout the week to think, oh, what is going well this week, so that I have something to talk about on the podcast. And that's a very common thing to just, if you sit down and think about things that are going right in your life or things that are going wrong, you tend to find them. So it was nice to kind of have that in the back of my mind. So excited to get chatting.
Yeah, and I
um
definitely need to be better about that because part of my issue this week is I rolled right back into my usual, and so it's going to take a bit for me to regularly keep my eyes peeled for the stuff that we talk about. And that's actually part of what made me grumpy this week.
Yeah. Well, I certainly was no saint. Man, after actually it's funny, it's like right after I got this stuff posted, I was like, all right, this is good. Can't wait for this week. And then immediately I was yelling at my kids that night. Oh my gosh, they just pissed me right off. It was
Yeah.
oh, and I like felt so bad. And like it was like 2 days in a row that I was just super cranky come dinner time. And I just it just
That's
adds
all
up.
part of it.
I know. It just adds up. So I guess that's a good segue right into why were you grumpy this week. I It's funny how like you kind of go into a new week and you're just like, oh yeah, it's the same as the last week, at least for me, right? I'm always like, oh yeah, it's just a new week, same thing as we always did. And then it's not until I get to like today or Thursday that I'm looking back, I'm like, why was this week so hard? Why was it just felt like it was impossible to get anything done, to have any kind of patience with my kids? Why was everything so lousy? And then I remembered my wife was gone all weekend. Like, she took my daughter. They went on like a little girls' trip back to Washington for a birthday party, and I was home and I cleaned all weekend to get ready because we were having people over to watch the AFC Championship. So I was like cleaning my house. I was prepping all the food for the party we were gonna have. I was getting everything set and like going grocery shopping. Like I literally didn't have a weekend. Like I was just
Yeah.
completely slammed. And then Monday hits and I'm right back into work, right back into everything else. I'm editing the podcast. I'm trying to cook dinner and like and it's just I was like, oh, I had to remember like I didn't have a chance to reset, to take a break, to like mentally recharge this weekend. And I need to be more aware that when I have stuff planned like that for a weekend, that I don't get a chance to do kind of like the extra chores. There's always the daily chores, but then there's like, okay, it's the weekend, we kind of need to take care of the towels laundry. It's not just normal laundry, right? It's the
Right.
little bit of extra mopping. It's all in when that stuff, so I did that stuff, but I was doing it solo. So it was so much more of an effort. So
So what'd you do with your boys during that time?
we just kind of hung out. I wish I had planned something a little bit different. And it was my oldest daughter and my wife left. So I still had my youngest daughter. So I had three at
Oh,
home.
okay.
And we hung out. We did a little pizza party on Friday, because mom's gone. We watched some movies. I think we watched Zootopia 2. And I tried to make it pretty fun, but then it was just right into cleaning and recovering. And
I would
yeah.
love for us to talk about sometime how to introduce littles to chores and that whole thing because that is something we have struggled with so hard. We've made some progress in some areas, but
Mhm.
it is the most uphill battle is just a straight vertical cliff that we are trying to climb and we have not figured it out. And so I think that'd be fun to talk about that
Oh
specifically
yeah,
sometime.
I agree. It's funny you mentioned that. I literally just printed off a sheet. I'm gonna go grab it.
Got a chore chart.
Yeah, this is kind of a separate conversation, but it's not a chore chart. It's a list of chores separated by ages.
Okay.
So it's like at ages 1 to 3, here's some things that you could do. 4 to 5, here's some things that they can do. I
Nice.
literally just saw this on Instagram while I was waiting for you to hop on the call. And I was like,
That's awesome.
I need to, and I'm trying to do this new thing where I don't just save social media posts to the app because then they disappear forever.
Right.
So I just copied it on my computer and I printed it out and I was like, here, now it's in the world. It's real. It's in physical space. Maybe I can do something with it. But
Nice.
yeah, I mean exactly what you're talking about. I that was this week is just trying to figure out how to get all of my kids, not even my young ones, to consistently do chores. It's so frustrating because this is not new stuff, right? Like we always have had for years and years. After dinner, we need help clearing, wiping the table, we sweep the floor, all of those things. And, inevitably, I like make dinner and I'm still in the process of like feeding myself, and my kids have eaten and left. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, sends me
Drives
right into
drives me
drives,
nuts.
yeah, the rage spiral just immediately. And it was rough this week, man. I did not
Jeez.
keep it together.
Well,
So,
there'll be
bummer.
another week, right?
I know
One week
that's
after
the
the
goal.
other.
Why were you grumpy this week, Mike?
Oh, I had a couple things. First one was the challenge last week. Even though it was my challenge, I did not have it at the forefront of my mind. The first day, I did pretty good, and there was something later that week. We'll get into it, but it was just a bummer that I just, like you're saying, I just went right back into the normal swing of things. When we were talking, it felt good, and I wanted to carry that momentum. And I did a little bit, but over the course of 7 days, that little bit ratio wise, very, very little time
Yeah.
spent thinking about that stuff. And so that was a bit of a bummer. And so I'm hoping as we continue to do this, and anybody that listens to this, that's kind of the idea is you're not just going to change everything all at once. The idea is little by little, just incrementally get better. So
Yeah.
the other thing that it was funny, but it was a bummer. So we were finishing up a youth activity and a friend of mine was there. And as we were walking out, I made a comment and he dropped a "that's what she said" joke immediately. He did not think about it. It just fell right out of his mouth as he was walking away. And my
Yeah.
oldest and I were getting into our car. And it was a solid "that's what she said" joke. It was so
Okay,
funny.
props, man.
Oh, yeah. But I immediately, he wasn't paying attention to the fact that my 13-year-old daughter was there. And I'm like, oh no. I get into the car and she's dying. She is laughing so hard. And a part of me, I was so bummed that she is at that age where this stuff starts to, she's
Yeah.
picking up on
You're like,
it,
you're
you
my little
know?
girl. You shouldn't know what any of this is.
Yeah. And, but like, I was 13 and I probably
Oh, I'm
knew way
sure.
more than she did.
Yeah.
And I had probably 10 different Eminem songs completely memorized start to finish. Like we heard stuff. And so I'm sure she's hearing all sorts of stuff at school. And I kind of don't want to know that.
Yeah.
And so we chatted and we were cracking up. And I was able to just tell her, like, this really bums me out that you're reaching that age. Let me know if you need to talk about anything,
Yeah.
because this is just part of it. So try not to get too wrapped up into things that wouldn't be what you would want to look back
Yeah.
on and be associated with. But the
Fair.
joke was hilarious. She thought it was hilarious, and I was so bummed that we're at that stage where she's starting to
Yeah.
really grow
You're
up.
like, not ready. It's
Yeah.
funny. My oldest. Hey, I'm in a meeting. I can't talk right now. Thanks. My older son, Emmett, he we were going to bed last night, and I'm sitting in the room in the dark and just kind of reading on my Kindle, waiting for them to fall asleep. and he pokes his head over his little bunk bed and goes, "Hey, Dad, what was sex?" I was like, "What a weird way to ask that question." And I was like, "What do you mean, buddy?" He was like, sex. And I was like, "Where did like?" And I've heard, right, you don't want to jump into anything before you understand like what it is they're asking, because they may not. And
Right.
this was a
You
good
have to get the
opportunity to kind of
context.
practice this, right? Because and what he was asking was, he was like, "Remember in that game you guys were playing?" I was like, "Oh, right, because over Christmas we played a game. It was like a Jackbox game, and it was one of those, here's a list, a blank list, right? And you're trying to figure out where certain phrases or words land on the list. And then they give you like a category. And the category was things that men think they're better at than they actually are,
Oh
right? And
my
so it was,
gosh.
and everybody's kind of typing things in, right, around in the living room. And of course it's, sports, it's basketball, it's woodworking, and all of these things. And the number one thing, right, is sex. And we're a pretty conservative family, right? Like we're all sitting there like typing a bunch of different things. And then like 10 minutes in to the 10 minutes into the list, as it's counting down, and finally somebody throws it up there, and it's sex is the number one thing that men think they're better at than they actually are. And
Right.
everybody dies laughing, right? Nobody wanted to put it up there, but everybody thought it was hilarious. And as happens, all of the little kids had come upstairs, because we've been laughing for the last 30 minutes to figure out why the parents and the adults were laughing. "Oh, this is cool, whatever." And now we've got a bunch of 10, 11, 8-year old kids that are like, what's that? Why is that so funny? Why is that the funniest thing that's happened in the last half hour?
Yep.
And he just, it's apparently he's just been like holding on to that. So it was, again, it's like one of those, you got to get into that opportunity to have a little bit of a conversation, be like, "Oh, okay, here's why it was funny," and a very
Yeah.
simple kind of 8-year-old version of it. But yeah, it just reminded me.
That's a fun one, man.
Yeah, good times. It just comes up out of nowhere.
It really does. I mean, that's great that he was able to ask you about that, right?
Yeah,
Like, who knows what he could have heard, or, thought I was embarrassed. You don't talk to your prince. I don't know. So the fact that he did, you had the discussion, that's a great foundational step for future conversations. So
yep,
that's awesome.
exactly.
But I bet you're blindsided by that.
Yeah, it was like, I thought he was asleep at that point, right? I was getting ready to make my exit from the room, and he just like creeps up. Like, what? Where did that even come from? Ugh.
Oh man.
All
Cool.
right. Well, why was it worth it this week? You want to start us off?
Sure. So the one thing that stood out to me, so last week we had our technology fast where we swung so hard into the no technology. We really wanted to separate ourselves to figure out the pieces that we think is worth it and we can introduce back into our
Sure.
lives. And when we were having the discussion on what that might look like, we had it with our kids. Becca and I talked about what we think might be good things to introduce, where we felt like, oh, this would have been a good time to watch a movie together or whatever the case is. And so we had that discussion with our kids. And my oldest, again, she had a really hard time. And something about her is, ever since she was really little, she tends to just well up with emotion when she has any sort of conversation that is hard. And props to
Yeah.
her, she still pushes through that. And even in
Yeah.
this conversation, we asked her why she's crying, and she's like, "This is just what happens sometimes." And she continued to work through that, which was great because
Super
when I was a
mature. Yeah.
kid, yeah, if I start crying, shut down. I
Yep.
was I
I'm out.
was useless. So we had this conversation, and she was just frustrated, and we just had to explain, like, listen, we're not looking to make you feel better, we're trying to look to do what's right for you guys. And while we don't know what that is, we feel pretty strongly that this is the next step. Anyway, so
Hmm.
then we're going to a youth activity. It's just her and I in the car. And this was immediately after. Like, we
Yeah.
ended the conversation. She had about 5 minutes to get changed and get in the car. Her eyes are probably still a little bit red. And
Yeah.
in the car, when after that separation that we had, she was able to tell me that at school they actually just had an assembly on the dangers of technology, showing how much time kids in her age spend on their phones, how much screen time they spend, and the damage that that can cause. And so once she took that space after the emotional reaction, she in her own mind put together these good outside resources to corroborate the things that her parents are trying to do. And we had a great
Mhm.
discussion and everything was hunky dory. So props to the school also for showing that
Yeah,
stuff.
for
That was
sure.
good information. But that
Well, it's cool
was
that she was able to
really good.
like draw that connection, right? Like, oh, I was emotional. This was hard. This was a thing that happened at home. And then when she had time to sit down and like think about it and process, she's like, oh, yeah, I guess it is. I have heard this before. This actually isn't that new of information.
And it only took like 10 minutes for,
Yeah.
that connection to happen. And so it was great to see her making positive connections. Um,
Yeah.
because you can tell your kid, it's like Inception, right? If you keep telling them ideas and stuff, they know where those ideas are coming from. But for them to really latch on, it has to come from within. And
Yeah.
she was making these associations and starts to develop internal understandings about things.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see that. I was expecting more pushback. I thought we were going to get in the
Yeah.
car. It was going to be awkward. I'd have to lecture her even more. But she was like, no, we've talked about this and you guys are kind of right. We're like,
Yeah.
yay.
I saw a cool social media post a long time ago that was talking about addiction, and they said that addiction is the consistent narrowing of things that bring you joy, right? Until it's basically just one thing. And sorry,
Yep.
I'm getting phone calls here. Gotta mute. Sorry. Anyway, so
You're good.
they talk about addiction is a consistent narrowing of things that bring you joy. And I was thinking about that and thinking about like my role as a parent, as a father, and this idea that if that's what addiction is and we don't want our kids to be addicted, if I don't want to be addicted to things, then the goal is to spread that out, right? That we're trying to find as many things as possible that bring joy and bring happiness into your life. And that's something that we started telling our kids when they ask us, how come I can't play video games? How come I can't watch TV? How come I can't do this? I say, because you haven't done anything else that makes you happy today, right? Like, and that's
Oh,
my
I like
job as
that.
your dad, right? My job as your dad is to help you find a lot of things and find a broad spectrum of things that make you happy. And if right now in this phase of your life or this week or month or season, all that's bringing you happiness is Minecraft or Paw Patrol or whatever it is, right? Then we need to take a break and let you explore and find other things and help you experience extra something else.
Right.
So yeah,
That's
I
great. I like
really
that.
enjoyed that. So I told you I was really struggling and being upset with my kids, and I get really angry when they don't want to eat the food that I make because a lot of times I don't want to make it, and uh and I make it
If I'm going to
anyway, and
make
then they
it,
don't
you're
eat
going to
it.
eat it.
Yeah, like it's just this constant thing that I've been working with, and it's my personal struggle. And so that's why I was grumpy. But I think I told you last week, my son has been getting into these Master Chef Junior episodes,
Yeah.
and he's keeps asking me, "Can I help you cook? Can I help you cook? Can I help you cook?" And I'm just like, do I want a spastic 8-year-old around my hot stove? It's like
Right.
this is really, and it's been kind of a struggle to find ways to kind of incorporate him into the family cooking and meal making. And I was having a really, really bad day on Tuesday. It was just like, man, I'm so done. I don't feel like cooking. I had a long day at work, all of these things going on. And then I remembered, I was like, I got a Blackstone for Christmas that I haven't cooked on in like a week. And I was like, I want to cook on my Blackstone because I really love it. And the weather's like okay today. And then I remembered, okay, and I have like burgers in my freezer, and my kids love burgers. They always eat them. Here we go. Like this is I can do this. So I was like pretty cranky, but things are looking up because I can cook on my Blackstone. So started gathering everything up, and my son came up and was like, "Hey, can I help you cook?" And I was like, I've got a challenge to do this, to say yes. And this seems like a good opportunity. And I said, yeah, you can help me. And so he came out and he helped me. I didn't let him like use the Blackstone, but he was shuffling things around and grabbing bowls and getting the spices and the seasonings. So it was really nice to just. It wasn't a lot of help, but he just wanted to kind of be around and get a little bit of experience. So that was kind of a nice
That's
thing.
greit's That's so
Yeah,
cool. And yeah,
I
it's
was really
always
happy.
scary around cooking and heat and
Yeah,
stoves and
knives.
any anything, yeah, anything dangerous. I've had a talk with my boys about trust and what it takes to be able to do dangerous stuff, and you have to prove to me that you can, follow instruction,
Yeah,
because if anything happens and you don't follow instructions, it can get really bad really quick. And so
yeah, I like
I would
that.
love for you to take part in this stuff, but you've got to show me that you can follow instruction.
Yeah,
And yeah, we had a tool night one night that was really fun. And yeah, so
that's
that's
neat.
an ongoing thing.
Yeah, he's the big thing for me and for him that I think he's been starting to pick up on is because he'll come and ask like, "Hey, can I make something?" And I'm just like, "You're welcome to, but the kitchen's not ready. Like we haven't cleaned up from the last thing." And so he's starting to
Right.
recognize like, "Oh, we do dishes so that we can cook more food, so that we can use them later." And right now, and so
Right.
he's been kind of like processing in that same way, like drawing these conclusions that I'm like, he's like, "Oh, this is why dad's always telling us to clean up. Because if I want to cook something right now, which is what I want to do, I don't have any of the tools or resources or space on the counters, to do
And it's
that."
not going to magically appear,
Right.
someone has to do
Right.
it. And if I don't, that means I'm asking mom or dad to do it. And that's a
Yeah.
conversation we've had with our kids a lot.
Yeah.
But that's great. It's cool to see those connections start
Yeah.
happening.
It's made it feel a little bit better. So, all right. Anything for you?
Mine was just, you know, Carmen latching on to
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah. That's
outside
right. That's right.
resources stuff.
I'll cut that. Cool. Well, we had some other sections. I just wanted to I wanted to take an opportunity to just kind of explain a little bit about who we are, what we're doing, and uh, intro a little bit. We didn't do it last episode because I just wanted to get something out. I think that most podcasts die after like 5 episodes, so I figured I wouldn't want it to quit after one. So we better get one out. And now that we've got one out, we've got a second one. So why don't we do a little intro? Yeah, Mike, you want to tell a little bit about your story? I think you've got an interesting story because one that's becoming more common and that a lot of dads can kind of relate to. You didn't. I don't even know. Did you even go to college at all? I know you didn't finish. Did
Yeah.
you do
I went to
I
five.
wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm the youngest of a big family.
Yep.
Um, and when I became an adult, I learned I have narcolepsy, which played a huge role in my life as far as just my ability to day to day function. And so a lot of my adult life, being married, growing a family, has had to revolve around how I deal with that, because I just don't function like normal people. Um, and it's just invisible enough that most people in my life probably wouldn't realize that that's the case.
Right.
But it dominates everything I do all day, every day. It is the driving factor, flavoring the choices that I make on a day to day basis. And so that really manifested in the workspace. Um, I'd be in a meeting and I'd just be passing out. Got a full night's sleep, and just a result of that, going through doctors, medication, all that kind of stuff. And I started a company, Caveman LLC, with a friend of mine, Frank. It's in the firearm space. We make accessories, and the ultimate goal was to work for yourself. Because I tried a bunch of different colleges. I got 108 credits in computer information technology, and I reached the point where the company I was working for at the time, I was a sysadmin, for an MSP, and they didn't care if I had a degree. And I was like, well, I'm either probably going to work for these guys or work for myself. And so I just didn't bother spending the time to finish.
Yeah.
And I finally, during the COVID stuff, I left them, and started working for myself. And during that time, I picked up 3D printing and kind of fell into 3D printing, where now I've got a full farm, and that has actually dominated most of my time. And that's taken off in a really
Yeah.
exciting way.
That's cool.
And in the process of that, I developed, or I was diagnosed with ADHD, inattentive type, because that explained a lot of questions. And so my whole mission is to understand myself so that I can do what's best for my family and just navigate things and being a dad.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's what I really hope for. I think that this podcast and, what I think both of us are building, but what I'm hoping my company will be is an opportunity to support dads in just unique and different situations that are maybe outside of the norm, and dads that are in the norm too. I don't think it's easy to be a father by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't care what age you're living in, or time frame, or how old you are, or your wife or kid. I just think it's one of the most challenging things that you can do is try to raise other human beings. And I want to provide, a space that we can talk about those challenges openly, and just give encouragement, and make sure that we talk about the good things too. Because one of the things that just really resonates with me is that there could be people out there today that are finding out that they're pregnant, that their girlfriend, their wife are pregnant, and are just terrified about what that means for them. And I just want them to feel seen and heard, and to feel like, hey, this could be awesome, and this can be awesome, and here's some resources to make sure that it will be, and to be understand that that doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard, because I think that that is the case. And I think that there's a lot of dads out there that have cool stories and unique things that I want to be a part of telling, because I know my journey hasn't been, simple, easy, or normal. I
Yeah, very
expected,
unorthodox for both of us.
right, like I expected to just get a job and go to work and be able to provide for my family. And that's not what happened, right? I was, you know, had kids, had a job, and then got laid off, and then found another job and got laid off again. And then in that process, I had to come to terms with the fact that, hey, you might need to just stay at home. You might, you might need to be the one that cooks and cleans and does the dishes. And part of that is just you married a super awesome woman that has an engineering degree, and she's can find great jobs that will, handle the financial portion, and you got to find, ways that you can contribute in a different way. So that's why I've been really happy. I love food, and I've always loved spicy food, and kind of grew up with some of this stuff, and it's been really fun to explore that kind of creativity and building a hot sauce company. I think it's super unique, it's super fun, it's super interesting, but I also want it to mean something to, you know, to the brand that I'm trying to build. So yeah, just kind of fingers crossed that it ends up going anywhere. But I think this is another step for just, building something out of nothing.
Well, I think we are trying to demonstrate that the image of what a dad's role is has completely changed and how that's okay. Because I know for me, like when kids came along, what I really found is that the sense of responsibility for another human being and providing and protecting, surprisingly, I did not think that this would happen. My oldest daughter was the first diaper I ever changed when she was born, you know?
Yeah,
And so when those feelings came in, it's like, I really want to be better. I want to do these things for these other human beings. Um, I think that's a very universal feeling to some degree, but how that manifests has changed drastically over the years with opportunities, technology. It's not just a dad that goes to work 8 to 5, comes home, fixes the car.
yeah,
It's not that anymore. It's much more dynamic, much more fluid. I think the chart you shared last week kind of hints
right,
towards that.
yeah,
And what that looks like for each, my business partner for the caveman side, he's a stay at home dad. His wife works for the government parks world, I think. Not the parks department, but she does like preservation for
yeah,
national parks, and then she moved, I think, to the private sector recently, and that works great for them. And he is finding ways to make sure he is still doing the dad role despite not being the primary breadwinner, and that's
yeah,
okay. That's totally
yeah,
fine for guys to do that, but that doesn't mean you have to limit yourself in how you express being a father, being a
right,
husband. And so I think I'm excited to explore all the different ways that we can accomplish that with our different situations.
yeah. And I think that one of the testaments to me that that is the case is just our friend group that we grew up with, right? We've got, you didn't finish college, my brother-in-law didn't finish college. Some of us did, I did, but now I'm doing my own thing. And, some of us are, in sales, and some of us quit this, and some of us, like we all just come from very different places in very non-traditional ways. And to even have, me here as a stay-at-home dad, and then also we're just friends, and then your buddy is also doing, it's like it's an evolving kind of conversation about what it means to be a father that isn't stuck on who's bringing home the biggest paycheck anymore. And I think for a lot
Yeah.
of dads, and myself included, like it was easy just to be like, oh, here's my value to the family, and it's tied to this number.
Yeah, and I think one big thing that is different, the standard, you get a corporate job, you work the ladder.
Sure.
There's been so many men who have gone. I mean, a lot of men fall into that field, and it's perfect for them, right? Like it just
Sure.
fits
Yeah.
who they
And
are.
that's
They like
awesome.
that. But there's a growing number, and maybe it's always been this way. Now we're just kind of finding each other where they just don't fit that world at all for whatever the reason is. And so to the entrepreneur side, I see so many of my friends trying to get out of that world because they're finding different niches that they want to explore, or they're
Yeah.
really trying to find a way to balance fulfillment with providing, where they can go to work and be exactly who they are versus who an external entity is asking them to be. And I think that
Sure.
might be the core conflict. When I go to work, I am forced to be something I'm very much not in order
Yeah.
to do this thing I do want to do. And the goal is where I can be in a space where I can be the best version of myself. I can stretch myself in the best ways, and still be able then to accomplish that. And I think there's a lot of guys who are looking to make that transition, mid late
Yeah.
30s, and they're not
Yeah.
recognizing who they're seeing in the mirror. And so hopefully we can provide some input on how we are finding that in ourselves.
Sure. Navigated that. And I think about, you mentioned that graph that we took a look at last week. And I think about that wouldn't happen unless that's what guys wanted to do, right? Like having millennial dads be, so involved in home care and child care at, the age that we're at. That's not a fluke. Like that's not a mistake. That's not like, oh, well, all of these women have entered the workforce and now all these dads are staying home. I don't think that's, I don't think there's a linear like explanation. I think it's just as a generation we're looking around at the corporate world and how work and society are functioning and saying, you know what, I actually just kind of want to hang out with my kids. Like
Yeah.
I just
I
think
want to
it's
be a
that
part
simple
of their
that there's just
lives.
I think that there's just a growing trend with our generation of people that just want to be with their families, with their kids more often.
That's
And
definitely
then
what I'm
that
seeing in my
triggers other
circles.
things, right? Yeah.
I mean,
So,
because it's very easy to not have a job and be home and still not be with your kids, and I think there are
yeah.
plenty of men that do that kind of stuff, which is
Yeah.
really unfortunate, to not be at least actively engaged, let alone with your kids. But like you said, I think those numbers reflect that there is a growing group that is identifying that that's where they want to be, and hopefully we can
Yeah.
connect and reach those guys.
Well, I'd agree with that. So that's cool. Well, how did we do on our challenge this week?
So in the beginning, I did great, like I said earlier. So Niles, my youngest, he's 6. He was like, "Dad, do you want to wrestle?" And I was like, "Okay." And so we just wrestled, and then Violet jumped in, and it lasted maybe like 15 minutes, and I'm
Sure.
getting old and tired, and so finally I was like, "All right." I reached my limit, and I think he had a blast. And of course, he
Yeah.
wanted to keep going. And so actually, the first time he asked, we did keep going. But then the second time, I was like, all right, I actually, have to be done. I wish it was more, but there was that. And then later, so Ross is having a birthday party, and I 3D printed some party favors, and he
Oh,
wanted
cool.
a combination cat, Minecraft, Lego birthday party. And
Oof.
so we figured out how we're going to do it. So we have different party favors, and I 3D printed he helped me figure out what we're gonna do, and we worked together to get feedback and
Yeah,
dial down what we're gonna work on. We got
sure.
these little Lego Stanley mugs with
That's
a little
awesome.
with a little straw,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
awesome.
we got these little orange cats, the little orange flexi cats, and then the
Look at that.
Minecraft TNT bricks that you can turn into a keychain. Anyway, so
Yeah,
we were able to
that's cool.
collaborate on that, and so that was fun. It was a little tough because he and Niles, in the middle of like figuring something out, their minds are already moving on to something else. So what about this? What about
Oh
this? What
yeah,
about this? And I'm like, let's stop and
yeah.
just do this one thing in front
Give
of
me a
us
little
first.
focus. Yeah,
Yeah, and then let's see where this takes us, and then we can move on to the next thing.
yeah.
So that was a little challenge, but it
That's
went
awesome.
okay. I'd definitely like to do better this week.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think I'd like to hold on to this challenge for another week because I don't feel like
Okay.
I nailed it at all. So if you're cool with that, we can pick another one
Yeah, 100%.
next episode. All right. Well, thanks for chatting, Mike. We'll cut it a little early today.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
because I got to go 3D print with my son. He's
Nice.
been
There you
begging me
go.
for some stuff. So thanks for coming again, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you next week.
Take it easy.
Bye.